I'm Jonathan Gerwitz, Vice President of KGB Texas Communications, and welcome to thePoint. Today we're visiting with Erik Walsh, City Manager of San Antonio. Erik, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You just finished your first budget cycle as City Manager, $2.8 billion budget. I think most of us have a tough time budgeting for our households or for our businesses. How do you budget for a city, a fast-growing city of 1.5 million people?
You have a huge team and a lot of great executives, and more importantly, you get really good direction from your bosses, the City Council.
And how do you prioritize? How do you determine where those dollars are going to go?
So, internally, every year, as we prepare for that, we're looking at service changes or improvements that we need to do. More importantly, the council sets the priorities for the city in terms of budget. The council directly gave me 5 top priorities: domestic violence, housing affordability, police, streets and infrastructure, and property tax relief. That really is the roadmap. At that point, it's really up to the organization or myself, and I met with every department to review their 2019 and 2020 spending. An organization as large as the city with $2.9 billion, there's always something we can do to be a little bit more efficient, and we were able to make about $6.5 million in those efficiencies and be able to redirect that funding towards the top priority.
You're a lifelong resident of San Antonio, so you've had the opportunity to see how public policy affects quality of life in San Antonio. What do you think some of the key decision points have been in our history that have put San Antonio on the path that it's on now?
There have been a number of key decisions that have been made, sometimes not by council. The closing of Kelly Air Force Base had a huge impact on the community, but look at where Port San Antonio is at now.
Right.
A lot of that has to do with investment decisions that councils have made over since then to beef up the infrastructure. There are decisions that councils make year in and year out that set a framework for how we're going to grow or how we're going to invest or how we're going to incentivize. A lot of the work that's being done right now for the SA Tomorrow plan and the 13 regional areas are really laying the groundwork for what I think are going to be investment zones for economic development, transportation, housing, and those 13 areas are the main core areas, and you and I know where they're at. It's Brooks, it's 410 and 281 by the airport, it's the medical center, it's
Right.
ETSA. They're spread out all over the place, but those should be our planning hubs.
We talked about the direction that the City Council gave you as far as the priorities for the city budget, but what are your priorities managing the city of San Antonio?
Some of my internal priorities are to improve customer service, whether it's the 911 call taker or the airport or the librarian. I mean, across the board. 2, making sure that we're engaging our employees, my employees, as we move forward. Many times we spend a lot of time talking about the 0.1% of employees that may have a lapse in judgment. Right. But that means I've got 99.9% of the 12,500 employees that are doing a great job. Whether you're the city manager or you're a frontline supervisor, we shouldn't lose sight of that. Number 3, as an organization, we need to do a better job of utilizing data. And some departments in the city organization do a great job, and others don't. And using data in two different ways. One, to communicate to the media or the public or the neighborhood association or the council. But secondly, to make those service-based decisions we should be doing as we strategically and tactically, address service needs. And again, there are elements of our organization that do a really good job of it. There are some that need help. So we're trying to do a little bit more collaborative efforts inside the organization to do that. Our core mission really encompasses 4 key areas. It's teamwork, professionalism, integrity, and innovation. And, you know, I'm talking about those things because I want people to know about them. They really mean something. We have too many things we're responsible for not to remember what our core missions are.
What do you think some of the biggest challenges are that San Antonio faces?
I think we're gonna be dealing with some budget issues next summer, and a lot of that stems out of the SB2 that was signed by
Austin.
the governor earlier this year. There were a number of bills that were approved by the governor this year that had a financial impact on us right now. The largest will really hit us next summer. I'm confident that we'll be able to manage through this, and this isn't just a San Antonio thing.
Right.
Every city and county in Texas is going to be dealing with this changing framework, but it's going to really rest on two main points. One, that we be very clear and set very clear expectations, and that we be very clear on what the priorities are. I was very careful this summer as we put together the proposed budget for the general fund. The general fund is only increasing from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 is only going up 1.4%, and we kept that growth down so that we're better prepared for next summer.
One final personal question for you. I know you played football at Central Catholic. I frequently heard you use football metaphors when you're speaking in public. We often hear negative stories about the role of athletics and its relation to academics, but I think most people have a positive experience. I'm wondering if you could share how you think football has helped shape who you are and maybe how you manage the city.
It had a huge impact on me. I'm a big team sports guy. What I do every day in this building is a team sport. The definition of teamwork is being comfortable enough for your teammates to know what your weaknesses are. And I'll give you an example. I played on the offensive line at Trinity. And I was an offensive guard. And you've got the center to my right and a tackle to my left. Both these guys would kill me if they hear me telling the story, so hopefully they're not going to watch the video. The center always forgot to call the huddle. So after every play, I'd have to say, hey, call the huddle, call the huddle. The tackle next to me was a horrible pass blocker. Well, he wasn't that bad, but he needed improvement. So I always knew I needed to help him. I jumped off sides all the time. And so when we'd come out of the huddle, both of them would say, it's on two, it's on two, it's on two. So that was a team, and you could take that type of lesson with you, and I have as I've gone through my professional career. Everything I do is a team sport.
Well, thank you very much, Erik,
Sure.
for joining us. Thank you for joining us on The Point.